All right. Hi, everyone. It is officially 8:30 a.m. my time. I know it's about 3:30 p.m. all over Europe and um, everywhere in between. So, as per usual, I'm going to wait a couple of more minutes for some of our late stragglers to stream into the room. But yeah, we're super excited for you to join us. We're going to be doing our AMA on game design this week, and we've got a really awesome special guest here, as well as some really cool visuals and trailers to show off as well. So, gonna wait about 2 minutes and then we'll kick off. Thanks so much for joining us today. All right, it's officially 8:32 a.m. and you know how I all love to keep these moving. So welcome everyone to our latest AMA Friday edition. The topic of today's AMA is game design. We've been doing a couple of quests this week related to it. We have a new discussion group and badge. We had a couple of related quests, and we're also super excited to be joined today by Walker World co-founder and creative director Michael McDonald. So for those who don't know him, he's got 15 plus years in AAA game studios to Web3 startups. He is a fellow LAMINA1 creator and member of our LAMINA1 early access program. And he's here to talk about, his experience as a game designer in the world, as well as something that he's working on. You can see the trailer is up here, Walker World. We are also joined today by our VP of Games Partnerships, Jamil Moledina, who is an industry veteran. He's worked with GDC, Hexagram, Wormhole, Google, and he is on the LAMINA1 core team to seek out and expand the L1 ecosystem with all sorts of fantastic, awesome experiences. So as you guys can kind of tell, we've been signing a bunch of partnerships recently. We're starting to build out what are the experiences that are going to be on LAMINA1, who are we going to be working with early, as we sort of transition from testnet to betanet and then eventually to mainnet. And yeah, we're super excited today to be able to kind of just show you some of the content that Jamil has been working hard to lock, and also our LAMINA1 creators have been working way harder to build and create. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the process of designing games for new use cases and mediums within the metaverse. And we're also going to be answering a few questions about the LAMINA1 Early Access Program for fellow game designers and developers who are interested in joining us on the LAMINA1 ecosystem. So to kick things off, I'm going to stop talking. I really would love to give Michael the stage and just have him tell us a little bit about himself, your role in game design, and what you're currently working on. Obviously, you've got a bit of a trailer and a demo to kick off, so I'm going to hand the mic over to you for a quick intro and for you to show us why you're here today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Casey, for the warm welcome. And yeah, very excited to be here with the LAMINA1 community today. It's been a long time coming. Been very excited to partner with LAMINA1. As Casey mentioned, we've joined their early access program, Walker Labs, with our game Walker World. And so I'm the creative director here. I've been spearheading the games team here, essentially taking a pretty well-defined IP with our walkers that we have now taken into a game. So we had a walker collection that did really well, and that's sold very well and enabled us to build this game. So it's very much it's almost like crowdfunding, I suppose, as someone who's come from Web 2, moving into Web 3 is how I sort of associate this space that we're in. So it's very community driven, which is exciting. Having lots of AMAs like this is definitely not somewhere where I've come from, but I can never go back now. And so it's very invigorating, engaging with the community, really proving out these ideas that have been, long talked about but never executed on until sort of fairly recently. So I'm going to go ahead and play this trailer. We've just dropped this trailer on our website, walkerworld.io. I'd strongly recommend checking out the website for more info, to give a bit of backstory and more detail. But I'm just going to play it. Let's go. And so the whole premise is Walker World is a place that people come to. They can build their own hub, I suppose, with their land and gather resources from that land, and that prospers towards these things that you can have utility on and use as part of the game. And so a big part of our experience is not just sort of our own IP with our own characters in our own world, but we're actually more targeting bringing other content into our world, from other collections, from other partners, even community-driven projects, and a user-generated economy at a later date. We want to really build this out as a exciting play space for everyone to be able to come in and bring their identity into this place and have a great time. We're very focused on having it very open, and this is a big reason why we partnered with LAMINA1, is because we share a lot of values around this equitable, open source sort of place that has no walled gardens or no paywalls or barriers to entry. And the way we're wanting to utilize things like tokenomics and NFTs is a way that enables a fun time for everybody. So not just having a sort of a paywalled, gated experience that only the rich and wealthy can enjoy, but enticing free-to-play players, as they're called, people who want to jump in, who don't have the means to spend money on tokens, or maybe aren't educated enough or aren't wanting to really get deep into that and still have a great time. And so this is very important to have a shared social experience at scale, not just trying to cater to an existing Web3 market, as they say, but also onboarding and adopting traditional players, which is also where I come from. And so as you can see here with a lot of this content, it's showing a wide variety of different avatar collections that we're adopting and bringing into our space, wide variety of content. We have massive open worlds that are all built in-house by us in Unreal Engine 5. So the fidelity is very exciting as well. Unreal Engine 5's like a phenomenal engine. It's really served us well, getting us very far very quickly and at a high quality, polished level of quality, which everyone's responded very well to. It's also helped us immensely with growing our team. We've had some extremely talented and experienced people join the team recently. And yeah, it's just really exciting seeing this take off and sort of formulate into something that I want to play. We sort of all reached a place in the team that we all want to play this game. Sometimes it takes a while to really figure out what that is, building a vision, working as a team on what the foundations are with this experience, and what's something that we want to play, and how do we go about building that, and what do we want to achieve with this new Web3 space.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. I mean, we shared this video across our Twitter and our LinkedIn and Discord, and I think a ton of our community members have just been kind of like blown away at the kind of quality and fidelity of this experience, right? Like, you guys this is fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful. It is super exciting, I think, for the Web3 space. And Definitely, like the second that we announced that you were going to be joining us, we got actually over 500 questions this week for you to
Yeah, that's
answer.
amazing.
Um,
That's phenomenal.
yeah, I mean, just to kind of like level set with everyone here. So one of the big reasons why we did this AMA is because we did like a recent survey. We got about 15,000 responses, and we've got a ton of like hardcore gaming builders. So from our latest survey, we've got about 1,000 community members who work in gaming. We've got another 1,200 who say they work in art and design, and then 1,600 who work in immersive and XR. So you're definitely
Wow.
with your people here, Michael. And yeah, that was like something that I wanted to call out here just because like I think it's really important to kind of like understand like we've got developers, we've got creators, but like this is a super exciting one for all of us. In terms of format, just so everyone knows here, so from this week's sort of AMA question submission, I've pulled a bunch of things. We're going to be running through those for the next 15 minutes. But then after that, Michael is happy to take any questions that you want to drop in the chat feed based off of the conversation. So if you've got any additional questions for him or for us on, Lamina1's approach to gaming, our ecosystem or anything, feel free to drop them in the chat anytime. I'll be reading through as Michael's answering questions and sort of organizing them. So yeah, this is kind of going to be half closed, half open. So yeah, we're super excited, and I'm going to dive in because we've got a lot to get through. So Michael, the first question that we got is someone asking, I love to play, but I don't know anything about designing games. Can you give us a kind of overview? What's the process like being a game designer?
Yeah, it's a question I frequently hear. Most often, actually, people seem to have a genuine interest in this, and I guess long story short, it's never been a better time to get in hands-on and start creating games because of the nature of how easily accessible development tools are, how well it's documented, and how far technology has come to be able to jump in and quickly get something up and running. And that's going to be even tenfold when when AI sort of takes hold of the games industry to the point that we can sort of babble on a game that we want, maybe out pops a decent game. We'll see how far that goes. But in terms of technology and process, it's an exciting time. And the most exciting thing for me around making games is working with other people. And so what makes this project really special and what a lot of other projects I've worked on incredibly special has been just the diverse range of skill sets that each individual team member brings to the table. Really not any singular game is made by one person. And it's always a better experience when it's made by, a well-rounded team. And so what does this look like as a day-to-day? I guess it depends on what stage of the development of a game is. So a game development cycle has many different stages. So the first one, which we've sort of just come through, is the discovery stage, where we'll sit together as a team and understand, we'll brainstorm like what's the opportunities here, what could be a fun, enticing game in this market or this play space, or utilizing new technology, all of the above. I don't know. And then we just work towards, what does that look like? What's a goal here that could actually sustain a business, essentially, because it is, in essence, a business that we need to operate here. And so once we formulate that and we have a really good, solid game idea with like a very good game vision and pillars around what that game is, we can sort of take that into pre-production. Usually this happens around getting greenlit. In this case, it's almost working backwards. It's very interesting in Web3 where you can get a lot of community support and ultimately funding to build this game, similar to a Kickstarter. Whereas previously most game studios may start off in a basement, might be you and one other person making a very small experience and uploading it to a publishing platform and crossing your fingers. And then if you make some money, then maybe you grow a team from there. Whereas here it's been amazing where we've able to put a really solid team together from the get-go. based on the community's, trust and shared vision of what this can be. So it's definitely been interesting for me because it's the first sort of Web3 development cycle I've gone through. But yeah, so now we're more in pre-production and production in tandem. Again, Web3 is very different, but sort of a fine balance between designing, concepts and proving out features versus actually implementing game assets that are part of the NFT Walker World lore or whatever you might want to call it. So the Web3 space is quite dynamic and it's still very emerging, which makes it exciting for people like me because it's not proven out yet in terms of like what a solid formula is for a successful game in this space. So there's obviously a lot of things we can take from our learnings from both, as they say, Web2 or traditional gaming studios with our experience, but there's also this added, I guess, differentiating layer that we are factoring in now, where we don't have to assume, oh, this is what's going to work because it's been sold a million times over. So that's what's most exciting. Oh, sorry, I've probably gone too. I'm probably rambling too much, and there's a lot of questions to go through.
Well, yeah, I've got another question for you that I think is interesting as you're kind of talking about the sort of like transition from like Web 2 gaming to Web 3 gaming. So obviously you come from like a AAA background, and we got a question that was like, all the games I've played so far in the blockchain have been kind of old school. It's kind of like, playing a game on Commodore 64. And this person is asking, is it possible to bring high-end 3D games on the blockchain? And I thought that that was a really interesting question because obviously, as we just watched on the trailer, you guys have a super high fidelity experience that you're building. So, I mean, could you kind of go into like, obviously you are now a game designer in the Web3 world. Do you kind of have any theories for like why the games so far have been so, simple and like what it takes to kind of like take that fidelity up a notch for, what people are sort of craving and asking for in this space?
Yeah, definitely. And there's probably a few factors here. One would be just the time and resources it takes to build a game. And so these, I guess the Commodore 64 references talking about simplicity and, the graphics not being of high fidelity. It's a lot smaller undertaking, and we're actually ourselves looking at doing a mini game as well as this larger game as a means to, engage with the community at an interactive level sooner. Because these larger games, this high fidelity, game that we're gunning for, these games do take a long time to produce, right? Like, you see AAA games like Grand Theft Auto, they have, upwards of hundreds of people over, half a decade sometimes making this one singular game. We're definitely not going to be waiting that long for Walker World, thanks to advancements with things like Unreal Engine 5 and like mega scans and all this other stuff, plugins and blueprints that can get you very, very far. But there is something to be said about these smaller bite-sized experiences and using that as a means to engage with an audience. I like to think of this Web3 space being more of a community-driven experience rather than a singular game. And so thinking of, Walker World or, most other experiences, say like let's use, Yuga Labs as another example. They also sort of have this mentality where, the brand is a experience. It's not just one single game. So people shouldn't see it as, like, I'm not sure which games they're referring to with the Commodore 64 example, but maybe that's an extension of this community-driven experience. Maybe it's a bite-sized taste of what's to come later if it succeeds. So yeah, so those are some reasons. Just budget and scope. I'm sure if you could push a button and have a AAA Grand Theft Auto 5 game overnight, then there'd be a lot more of those too. But yeah, but long story short, yes, we're doing that, and it is definitely possible, and that's what we're going for here.
Awesome. I want to jump into a couple of questions about sort of play dynamics and things. So we got a
Mhm.
question, how do game designers balance creating games that are enjoyable and challenging without being frustrating or unfair to the player? What are some strategies that you use to achieve this balance?
Yeah, so this is definitely playing into a lot of learnings I had working in mobile gaming because it shared a very similar dynamic around freemium games and in-game currencies, and there was this whole wave of like people being frustrated at this pay-to-win, grind-to-earn mentality, um, which if done wrong can easily be abusive and leave and your game completely tanks. Um, and so there's several things we're doing here to address that common mistake that other developers make. And it's even more so important with things like tokenomics, where the in-game currency often has real-world intrinsic value, which heightens this tenfold. So you got to get it right. So one of them, in terms of the experience with like frustrating the player, is the right balance between this sort of play to earn mentality of if I don't have enough money to access this feature, then I have to grind to earn that instead. Well, it doesn't have to be a grind or like a strong, like this boring road to get from A to B. If you don't have any money, that experience could be fun in and of itself. So if you think of games like Minecraft, that is like this grind and earn experience, but the experience itself is very fun and engaging, and people will go off and play their own way and find things, and that leads to another thing, and that whole experience is fun. Or you could have someone who doesn't have that amount of time um, to sink into a game, but they want to have build their own identity, or experience something quickly, but without having to do all that. And so maybe we give them certain access to certain features that can sort of still provide them with an experience that they wouldn't have otherwise had due to commitments. Like myself, for example, I'd love to play Minecraft and do that, but I simply can't because I've got a wife and baby to juggle and a full-time job and all these other responsibilities, right? um, Not to say I can't play Minecraft, but I'd definitely be someone who would want to jump into creator mode and not have to grind to build something and just have fun and build something. So that's one, is like balancing people who have a lot of time versus people who have not so much time, but maybe some more monetary access, for example.
Hmm.
But the key here is not to give what would the right word be, like not to, in terms of a player versus player experience, not to overpower someone who's got more money than someone who doesn't, because then that brings a lot of socio-economic issues on board. It makes the game completely broken. Ultimately, you're not going to have a fun experience for everybody, and no one's going to want to play it from either side. And so that's another thing that people really need to get right, is ensuring that at no point does someone who has more access to more things have a detriment to the other players. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely someone who I think it's quite good having things like VIP clubhouses with might be a exclusive elite group of people who want to hang out together. But I definitely would not support anything that is at the detriment of the experience for someone else who can't do that. So I like to see it as if you look at soccer or football. I'm from New Zealand, so I call it soccer, but I like to use football as a great analogy, where it's football is FIFA World Cup is watched by billions of people, right? Um, Anyone can sort of have access to a ball and play soccer, and those people, will have they might have their local. I'll try to say football. Sorry for the audience. There might be local football clubs. Those people will engage. There's a social experience there. They might play football together locally in the park, or maybe amongst family. as a fun way to, they might have interest to build skills to be, compete professionally, and that might need some kind of monetary reward to do so. So if you're following my story here, I'll get to the point later. But so like with football, a skilled-based football player might want to spend years perfecting this craft as a football player, and they'd only really want to do that if they'd be rewarded to do so with some kind of monetary value thing. But then there's other sorts of things where there's like football teams that are built around sponsorships, for example, where someone with a lot of money might want to invest in a soccer team, for example, build a soccer team, put a soccer team together. That generates money through, the marketing through people watching that team or whatever it might be. People want to support these soccer clubs. They want to be part of those soccer clubs. That could be seen as these more elitist people who want to drive the sport forward and like support the sport financially, almost in a philanthropy sense. But maybe that might be a benefit to them as well. They might be an investor who gets benefits through that. Ultimately, everyone's enjoying soccer. And even those elite teams with like the world's professional players who are being paid money by these people investing in soccer, billions of people are enjoying that through watching those people as well. So as games move into the space of Web3 and real world enticing value currency, I think you're going to see more references from the real world and how successful experiences work across all demographics, because there's pointless investing in a game, or if you think about investing in a game with NFTs or coins, but only you having access to that experience, it'd be like someone like me buying stocks in, I don't know, NVIDIA, but only I can buy a NVIDIA card. Like, that makes no sense, right? Like, obviously, if I'm an investor, I want to make sure that company has a lot of growth and like is widely adopted and like is a household name and so on and so forth. So the same is true with games, right? If I'm someone who's supporting a game as an NFT collector or investing in tokens, it's going to be far more successful if that experience is accessible to a broader community and not just this sort of, siloed elitist community, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going for as well. And this is another reason why we're quite keen on LAMINA1, was because of these, shared visions about, equality and being this open metaverse. But at the same time, like I said, like we do definitely want to support sort of these VIP moments in these games for exactly the same as the sort of elitist football clubs might have with these like A teams. A great example is Yuga Labs obviously just did this Dookie Dash thing, which generated a lot of buzz. But it's very much a similar thing, right? So the winner, I believe, was a paid professional player by one of the NFT holders. Who won the game tournament? What was it called? Tournament? Well, let's go with tournament. That could be seen like David Beckham being paid to play. David Beckham being paid to play football. By someone who's funding that operation and taking home the cup, kind of thing. That's one way I like to see it. Generating this. Yeah.
You totally answered. We had a couple of questions further down the list about like defining the economics and the progression of the game that you totally just answered. Now, I wanted to kind of jump forward before we dive into some like LAMINA1 questions, and then we open up the floor a little bit. But we got a lot of people who picked up on the fact that you worked at Magic Leap previously, and you were sort of like working on experiences for them. And we've got kind of like three questions that sort of build upon each other. So we've got a lot of people asking, obviously Walker World right now is an immersive open world experience, but people are asking, how will augmented reality or VR sort of like um what kind of role will they play within the metaverse? And sort of like, are there any sort of like technologies on the horizon that you're excited about or interested about that'll help, bring the metaverse to everyone. And it's also very interesting. Obviously, this week we had a huge drop with the new Apple headset that came out, the Vision Pro. And we've got a lot of people who are sort of like, this thing looks awesome, but like, I can't afford a $3,500 headset. Like, what does this mean for me? Like, in your mind as a game designer, do you feel like things are headed towards that sort of like AR, VR landscape? And if so, would love to talk about that. And, is there also a way for that you think that people are going to be able to access the metaverse that doesn't require, fancy hardware or, really sophisticated tools?
Yeah, totally. That's like you said, there's definitely quite a few questions there. I guess it's worth mentioning just how the partnership with LAMINA1 came about, and because obviously Neil Stevenson worked at Magic Leap as well, and that was during my time there. And that's a long story, but long story short, I was working at Weta Workshop. I left Weta Workshop because the Magic Leap business turned to enterprise because of the pandemic. I moved here to Europe, started working in AAA studios, a little bit of XR stuff on the side. Decided I didn't like it. It was too much of a grind. Like AAA studios, you sort of one person, this massive machine with not much influence. And I was sort of exploring Unreal Engine 5 at the time while working at these AAA studios because Unreal 5 just dropped, and so I was just like jumping in there, playing around with it, seeing what I could do. And part of that was building this ray gun design that was based on one of Weta Workshop's IPs that was on the Magic Leap called Dr. Grillbots that I worked on. I was like, oh, I always wanted to see what this looked like in this high fidelity, photoreal thing. And it turned out pretty good. And I was like, oh, great. I posted it on LinkedIn, tagged Greg Broadmoor, who designed the gun and who was my game director there. And he got super excited. He then sort of spoke around within his little inner sphere. And it ended up leading to me working directly with Neil Stevenson and his creative director, Karen Loire, who I believe is also part of LAMINA1, on this super cool Snow Crash sword. And so we worked on the Snow Crash sword together. Weta Workshop were making the physical version of that, and I was making an NFT digital counterpart. Ultimately, this sort of got me interested into Web3 because I sort of didn't really know what the hell Web3 was. It's like I knew Neil through Magic Leap, and here he is, founding LAMINA1 and focusing on that. So I was like, okay, well, something in that. Next day, I get a call from this guy, Josh or Jay, saying, "Hey, man, I just saw that you've worked at Magic Leap and all this stuff." It's like, wow, no one knows about that. And he was talking about this, enticing studio called Walker Labs, and they were doing this project, obviously. And I immediately I saw the opportunity, because of just my involvement with Neil and understanding more about blockchain and what that could mean for gaming, and obviously my experience as well, like sort of helping drive that forward and building a games team to do it justice. So that's how that came about. And so that was sort of when we were winding down this sword project with Neil Stevenson. And then he was sort of like, oh, so what are you up to now? I was like, well, I just joined this Web3 studio making an open metaverse game. He was like, oh, what? Wow, cool. And then, one thing that led to the next, and here we are in partnership with LAMINA1. So yeah, that was that little backstory. What was the next part? Oh yeah, so the technology. So the problem with this technology is, you mentioned, this technology is on the horizon. Because of its complexity and its price point as being like this Gen 1, very expensive to manufacture hardware kit, it's always been on the horizon for the last decade or so. I guess now that Apple's dropped their XR bomb finally after many years, it's and being marketed appropriately as you'd expect Apple to do. A lot more people are finally more aware of like XR's capabilities in this sort of metaverse enabling blur between the virtual and the real. But it's still a very expensive price point. So I don't see, massive studios like this developing for it anytime soon. But it'll come. I'm sure of it. Especially now with Apple, beating their drum about it. I'm sure it's going to kick up, hopefully, enough momentum. And this is what the whole XR community is hoping on. Hopefully, it generates enough momentum that it will eventually go mainstream, and then will justify bringing experiences like Walker World, perhaps. Into this sort of seamless blend of reality. That's always been the dream, and my dream too. Yeah.
So Walker World is like a browser-based experience. That's what you guys are kind of focused on currently, correct?
So we are working on a browser-based experience right now.
Okay.
So there's going to be a few experiences that we drop. This Unreal Engine 5 experience at this point won't be browser-based. But it'll certainly be supported by any services that are pixel streaming, for example, like through consoles or PC or whatnot. But it will be built in Unreal 5, which isn't a browser-based native engine. But that's ultimately where these engines are all heading, is very much browser-based. So I have no doubt in my mind that it will end up being browser-based, and that's going to really break down these barriers of entry with building this content for these platforms, and also the devices that come with it. No longer will we have to choose between, do we build on Magic Leap or do we build on mobile phones? Well, we probably build on mobile phones because 100 million people have them in their pockets, right? With things like browser-based engines and other technologies on the horizon, and already accessible as well, that's no longer going to be an issue, because you're just going to build and deploy it once and it'll just work on any device anywhere, for example.
Totally. Yeah. And that's definitely the vision that, Neil has set out, and that I think we're all kind of working towards together. I'm actually going to hop a couple of questions over to Jamil next, just because we did get a good amount of questions just about like the LAMINA1 game strategy, and obviously just people super excited about the fact that we're working with such a high fidelity, exciting looking experience. So Jamil, I'm going to call you to the stage, just to answer a couple of questions. So I guess to start off, Jamil, do you want to tell us just a little bit more about, other than Walker World, about some of LAMINA1's planned collaborations in the gaming space, and sort of sorry, that's my dog, and sort of your process for kind of working with and finding these really promising leads within the Web3 space. Your job is freaking awesome. So I wanted to open up the floor a little bit to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the AMA here. And thank you, Michael, for sharing so much of your vision and background and heart and soul that you've put into Walker World. I think to answer that question, I can very easily just say everything you've just heard from Michael is what we're looking for, and how we select and how we think about this space. There's LAMINA1 has a couple of programs. Like Michael mentioned, he's part of the Early Access Partners program, and that gives the partners that we select for it early access to some of the technologies that we'll eventually be revealing and sharing with everyone in the community. Michael and team are very forgiving. They'll understand that there's a little bit of clunk in the early version of our technology. But at the same time, they're extremely supportive and eager to participate. And the spirit of collaboration really permeates every engagement that we have with partners like this. In terms of the fidelity of what we're looking at here, this is a high fidelity experience. The open world game, which features a campaign mode, a multiplayer mode, and a creative mode, this is most, if not all, of the top 50 console PC games. That's the genre of most of the top games that are successful today. So I really like to be able to highlight examples like this. Also, another example of that would be Shrapnel, which is a high-fidelity first-person shooter that is also on the blockchain. Fantastic examples. They represent the AAA end of the spectrum. But as we all know, the games that people enjoy can range in fidelity, they can range in engagement, and the degree to which the game loops kind of become part of our lives. So people enjoy games that are at a more bite-sized scale, and we support those as well. But in terms of how we collaborate, that specific question, one of the things that I really like about what we have, the vantage point that we have in terms of the community of folks that are listening to this AMA, that participate in our Discord, that are part of our EAP program, that respond to our press coverage and come up to us at events, there's a big opportunity here for matchmaking. Making metaverse experiences is not easy. And so what we're looking to do is not only find great developers and great content, but also partner with great tools providers, great middleware providers, great platforms that can take the technical heavy lifting out of the equation. In that way, we're weirdly well positioned to say, oh, there's this great startup that has the perfect way to implement the technology that you're trying to make easier to get into. And so there's a lot of these that are happening under the hood. I can't, Casey, get into some of the specifics, as you know, but I think that's what you'll be seeing a lot more of from us in the near future.
Totally. Yeah. And I wanted to just kind of plug like anyone who's interested in the early access program, or we also have the L1 ecosystem fund where people can apply to for potential funding for experiences. Head to lamina1.com/ecosystem. And there are those kinds of opportunities. We also have an L1 EF channel on the Discord, as well as a couple of weeks back, we had an L1 Ecosystem Fund complete AMA. So if you're interested in that, we've got an entire session on that. But we even have like an L1 matchmaking channel on our Discord to help kind of hook up community members and builders with potential investors. It's sort of like an experiment we're running right now. But yeah, I think like to mirror what you're saying, Jamil, like it's really exciting. I think even from my perspective, now that I'm able to invite some of our partners on to show like, yeah, the ecosystem is growing and we're just getting started. And we've got a lot of really cool partners that we're about to kind of unveil. So we've only got a few minutes left in the AMA, and I did want to jump into a couple of community questions that we've gotten live in the feed. So I guess first off, actually, Michael, our CTO, Will Carter, has a question for you in the chat. He asks, Michael, what are the biggest challenges you've seen from both a developer and a player perspective for integrating Web3 tech into your game? Like, what would you like to see improved from your perspective as a game designer?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I would say predominantly as a content creator as well with this, as creative director, I would say one of the biggest bottlenecks is partnering with other NFT collections or game studios that fundamentally share standardization, not just at the technology stack level, but also the content level. So a big bottleneck for many games is the technological challenges around things like not things like polycount, which can a lot more easily be resolved with tools, but things like does this avatar have arms and legs, and are those shoulders the same width apart as these other ones, and therefore can I hold a machine gun? It's things like that seem to be one of the biggest pain points. So it'd be great to have, I guess, better discussion. I know there's obviously Open Metaverse Standardization Forum. I think it's Open Metaverse Standards Forum, I think it's called. And OMA 3 and things, but I've found those are mainly focused around, very, very grassroots level tech stack stuff and research and things rather than just purely content. So it'd be great, I guess, if there was more awareness, or I don't know, maybe even in this call, someone can point me into the right direction. Just a place where we can all work together around, identifying what are these standardization models around content. Is my Walker or this, Clone X character going to work in, game X over here as well as game Y if it's interoperable, or are there fundamental technological and design differences that just don't allow that to happen? And if so, do we need features in there that are plug and play that allow for that? And that kind of thing, I think, would be an area that I'd love to see more discussion and collaboration with.
Great. Tom asks, wait, so Walker World is free to play? Just as a quick follow-up from when you were showing the trailer.
Yes, so Walker World will be free to play. We're not launched yet. Don't want to get anyone's hopes way up there yet. It is, pretty well explored in terms of what we're going for. But it's definitely not going to be launched tomorrow or anything like that. But I can tell you that we are definitely going to have, a free experience. But we're also, like I said, with the football analogy, we're going to offer enticing reasons to invest in NFTs and tokens and things that can either enhance or give addition or special access to certain things that aren't going to ruin the experience for everybody, but has some enticement there. But ultimately, we do want this to be free to play and accessed by as many people as possible, and not just players, but also other collections as well. So other games, we want to pretty much use this as a platform to bring as many other avatars or weapons or whatever we can into this experience to have this sort of fun, Ready Player One sort of fully realized play space. So to do that, obviously, we'd love to. It's great that there's a lot of developers in the chat. Actually, we'd love to hear from you if you've got a collection or a game that you'd want to sort of help get integrated into our game. Let's chat for sure.
What's the best way for people to reach out to you, Michael?
I'm very much active on LinkedIn. I'm not cool enough for Twitter yet, but I'm there. I'm not a Web3 Asian or whatever they're called. I am pretty much just on LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, love to connect with you. Otherwise, do visit the website. We've got our contact details there for our co-founders, Daniel and Christian, and also Morten as well, who drive the business end of this operation. And they'd love to hear from you as well, to see what collaborations can be done there, because we are definitely seeking more content for our world. As you can see on this this key art image, we've got quite a few collections like Fluff and Meebits and Clone X that we're teasing out. But the more the better. And also to the point I made before, collections that are standardized in a way that are much more plug and play than sort of what we're sort of seeing as of recent.
Awesome. And I'm going to end with one question from Jackal Girl that I'm going to actually take. I do not mean to put you on the spot, Michael, but Jackal Girl does ask, will there be any possibility of LAMINA1 community testnet testers to be able to be beta testers for some of the games that LAMINA1's partners are working on or deploying to the LAMINA1 blockchain? So, Michael, it sounds like people are already very antsy to try to get their hands on playtesting Walker World. But I will say, Jackal Girl, that's a really, really interesting idea and something that I'm going to take back to the team, and we're going to see whether or not we can work with that, because I think that's a super interesting idea and would be super exciting. So stay tuned on that news. I think I'm going to close out the AMA. We're a little bit over time already. I wish we could go on forever. These are super fun. We'll probably have to have you on again, Michael, once you get a little closer to Walker World launch. Super exciting. I can already imagine us doing a session where we face off against each other and start playing. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. We've got a bunch more community activations and AMAs coming up. Some of the things that I have on our content roster, we're going to be doing some stuff on cryptography. We're going to be doing some upcoming programming around SDKs and game development. And we also do have an upcoming special update from L1 Engineering that I know a lot of you have been asking for. As you know, we are quickly sort of accelerating towards some exciting milestones in Lamina1 development. We're getting pretty close to BetaNet. And, you know, I think just as the community manager here, catch up on your quests. Make sure that you're, you know, engaging in our channels. Quality engagement is really great too, beyond just like, you know, good mornings and emojis. Like we've got our gaming interest groups, our identity interest groups, our AI interest groups. We're really trying to foster a lot of sort of cool conversation, as well as just kind of like linking up, you know, the creators and developers in our community with each other. You know, the more kind of amazing projects and progress we can kind of spur out of these early days in our community, that's kind of like our huge focus right now. So again, moving towards BetaNet, catch up on your quests, engage, and we are so excited to continue this journey with you. So it's about to get busy again. Thank you so much, Michael and Jamil, for joining us this week for this AMA on game design, and we will catch you all soon.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah,
All
it's
right.
been really, really great questions too. Really loved this one.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Right.
Talk soon.
All right, see you.
Bye.
Bye.